Hey everybody, welcome to Board Game Heaven. My name is Raymond, and in this video I'm going to talk about the Things from the Flood RPG by Freely Publishing. This is of course the sequel to the Tales from the Loop RPG, which I also have. If you'd like to see my thoughts on this, just click the link in the description below or the I in the corner of this video, and that will take you to a video where I review the Tales from the Loop RPG, and this takes place in the 80s, and the follow-up stories in Things from the Flood take place in the 90s. So we're 10 years in the future. We're now no longer kids, but we're teenagers. And there are plenty of mysteries going on concerning the Loop facility in the Malaran Islands, or in America, and the American Loop in Nevada. And this book covers, again, the rules of the RPG, which is of course very similar to the Tales from the Loop RPG. There are a few differences. The game is a little bit darker, a little bit more mature, if you will, than Tales from the Loop, and it has also, just like the other book, has some pre-written stories that you can play to get started. Now I also have the Gamemaster Screen that I will also show. It's very nice and very colorful and very handy, so I'll show that as well. I've been playing this with my group of friends online, because you can play this online as well. I'll put links in the description as well. So if you can't meet in person, there is an option to do that too. Alright, so let's get started. I'll flip through the book and explain everything that's in the book and share my thoughts as we go. Right, before I start showing you the book and all the chapters and talking about that book, I'll quickly show you the Gamemaster Screen for Things from the Flood, which is pretty nice looking. Has a lot of information on it. So let's get the shrink wrap off, the leaflet. But the screen itself, I'll show you the back first. It is really nice. It has some amazing art by Simon Stalenhag. There's a Parhoofer droid here, kid climbing on it. A couple of others there, out of commission. I really like the orange sunrise there, or maybe it's a sunset, and the snow landscape that's turned blue. It's really cool. So let's have a look. All right, so over here you've got a rules summary for the Game Master. Making a mystery is even on here, because the game is pretty rules light, so it just has some short bits of text here to basically give you an idea. Types of scenes that you have here, mysteries, everyday life. It's very, you know, just words, triggers that help you remember what you can do. There's not a whole lot of actual rules written here. And maybe the Game Master Screen serves more as just a physical barrier to hide your gaming assets from the players. But yeah, it does have some handy things here. It has the conditions that the players can have, which is used a lot in the game. How you can recover those conditions, how you can get a scar if you're, got all of these ticked off and you're broken. I'll show you that a bit in the book. Yeah, different types of scars you can get, how you survive them, and how you deal with them. Rolling dice, which is of course a lot of fun, to do the tests, which is basically your attribute and your skill added up. You roll those dice, and a 6 is a success. And you could say, well, you need multiple 6s for an extremely difficult task or an almost impossible task, but you can also help each other. You can push a roll, and then you check off one of those conditions. To push a roll, you basically just roll again. And the next time you'll have one less die for each condition. Successes, of course, failure, what happens then? You can have a fight, teen versus teen, and decide what happens then. Extended trouble. All of that. This is basically very, very short terms of the chapters in the book, which we will see in a bit. Briefly. I don't want to go into detail of all the rules too much. And here we have all the different types of attributes, skills, and bonus effects. And this is something I found the most useful. Just seeing what all of that means and what you can do with that in the game. But it's very basic. This is very basic, and it gives you an idea of how basic the rules are in general for this game. So yeah, let's grab the book and browse through that. Okay, so the Things from the Flood, which is of course a really good looking book, just like we're used to from Free League. Sequel to Tales from the Loop. There's a little bit of a flavor text on the back. Has some key features there listed. Has won several awards there. Pretty cool. Gold winner in 5 categories, no less. That's pretty damn good. With art from Simon Stalenhag. So, which is of course this beautiful art we see here. Here's a map of the Malaran Islands in the 90s. So things have changed since the stories in the Tales from the Loop. And the universe is created by Simon Stalenhag as well. So here is the list of contents. So there's a bit of a backstory. There has been a flood, hence the title. And yeah, so a little bit of a backstory there. The Loop in a new time, an alternate 90s. We'll go through that quickly. There's also the American version where it's in Nevada. And there's the Hoover Dam disaster. Here's your character, the teen, no longer the kid. The trouble they get into, so the mysteries, the things that happen. This is the mystery, so there's a separate chapter for the mystery and separate chapter for the trouble. But basically, stuff that can happen to you when you need to roll a dice, what things can affect you, shame and scars and conditions, how to answer questions, interacting, non-player characters, etc. Here's all the skills that you have on your character sheet. And then the mystery. So this is mostly for the DM to read. And the first 5 chapters are good for the players to read. And then the mystery landscape, collaborative storytelling. So everybody has their part in forming the story, basically. So we have that. There's a couple of locations that you can use. Prophets of Pandora. So these are 4 or 5? No, so yeah, okay. Yeah, these are 4 stories. We played 4, so yeah. This is basically the background of these 4 stories, which is called the Prophets of Pandora. And there's 4 chapters in that. Just like in Tales from the Loop, you also had 4 seasons that you could play. Pre-written adventures, mysteries that you can play from this book. So there's basically 130 pages of rules, if you will. So about 80 pages, or actually it starts at 8, so about 70 pages for the players and the DM, and then some more, about 20 pages more. Well, with this, it's 40 pages more for the DM, and all of that, after that, is a story that you can play. Of Flesh and Steel, The Ugliness, The Traveler, and Ash to Eternity. All right. So, again, this is basically just a nicely written background to what happened. There was a flood at the loop buildings, the site, and things happened, and machines started acting weirdly, and there's been a whole area that's now underwater that's closed off. And they do a really good job at setting the vibe, really, to give you the story, and the art really helps in that regard as well. So, the mystery landscape, that is basically the background, the setting in which you start playing. And it's presented as kind of a story, really. And it's easy to read. Here's some machines. You are neither kids nor adults, and the game is played scene by scene, and that really works. And they give examples of how that works as well. And the world is described collaboratively. So not just the GM, but also the players can take part in describing their world and describing what they see and do. And all of that shapes the world in which you play. Then in Chapter 2, you got the alternate 90s. So it's again the loop, but in a new time. See, it's stuff that happened. MTV, TV shows, music, movies, the rise and fall of the tech age. So yeah, I'll skip through that a bit. There's the machine cancer, which is basically machines kind of growing limbs or parts or brains or whatever. All kinds of weird stuff that's going on. Turning machines and apparatus into semi-organic things. And that's pretty creepy as well as a result of the flood. And there's the truth behind the machine cancer. There's a whole lot of stuff here that you can read. Robots that have taken on their own identity and started living in the wild. And people who have worked at the loop have now got loop disorder. They've gone loopy. That's really cool. Here are some examples of 10 hot TV shows and movies, and you'll recognize all of these, which I really like. And look at this art with the old computer, Prodigy poster over there, stuff like that. Really, it really helps you to get an idea of the setting, because likely you've lived through it. And if you haven't, well, this is a good reference. And go and see those movies and go and listen to that music and check out those TV shows if you haven't. All right. There's some historical facts here, which is also good. And a social background. It's another example of the machine cancer. What the heck is going on there? So yeah, that's all explained here. Lauren Islands, again. So yeah, I could go on, but this is basically just background, a whole lot of it. So that really gives you a good idea of the setting. The corporations that exist in this time. This is for the American setting, so the Hoover Dam disaster. So depending on where you want to play this, in Sweden or in America, you read the appropriate chapter. It's another good example of machine cancer. Tabletop RPGs that were popular in the 90s there. Highly publicized media events. So some of those you'll recognize as well. Must-haves. You had to have a Tamagotchi or a bandana, rollerblades, piercings. That's so cool. A slap bracelet, Game Boy. So cool. 10 computer games. Doom, Myst, Command & Conquer, Diablo, Duke Nukem. This is so cool. Grim Fandango. I played that not too long ago, Grim Fandango. That's pretty cool. Command & Conquer 2, by the way. So yeah, the same, but in America, right? And then you have map here where the reactor was placed, and Boulder City, which is over here. And again, just tells you, Area 51, interesting as well. All kinds of stuff that you might encounter or where you might go if you're playing the game in the American setting. Entire chapter 4 is about the teens, your characters, And it is very simple to make your character. You choose a type, and the types are in here. You decide your age. You distribute points between your 4 attributes. Then 10 points to skills. You get an iconic item, which may help you in one of those tests. You can have a problem because something might become difficult for you in a certain situation. You might be claustrophobic. You might be afraid of heights, afraid of bugs, whatever. You could do that. You could pick a drive, something that drives you. That will help you. You might get in a situation where you're extremely good at something. You can have a shame and your relationship to the other teens. You might have a relationship to 1 or 2 NPCs, like family or a partner, or a boyfriend or a girlfriend. You can choose an anchor, person you can relate to, a person that can be a person of confidence, your confidant. 1 or 2 hooks, or have the GM choose it for you if you intend to play the adventure landscape, which is explained later, and of course a name. So yeah, here are the characters, and this is so easy. This is just great. They have relatable characters, right? You have the hacker, the jock, and it explains stuff that you can have. You can make this up yourself, but you can also choose from what's in the book. So this is just, if you just have no inspiration or no idea at all, you're a new player, just read this and pick something you like. The lone wolf, the motorhead, the party animal, the raver, the rocker, and the seeker, the snob, of course, the street kid, and that's them. And these are kind of like, if you've seen The Breakfast Club, there's like one of each in that story as well, which is pretty cool. So it explains all of those things, attributes, skills, items, and it's very simple. You just simply have all of these attributes. You've got body, tech, heart, and mind. You put points in that, and then you have skills that are linked to those. Sneak, force, and moving is body. Tinker, program, and calculate is tech, smarts, This is more physical. This is more your mind. Heart is you've got contacts in the world. You've got charm or leadership. And then mind is basically your cognitive skills, your investigation, comprehension, and empathizing. And you put points in those as well. You divide them. And then whenever you need to take a test, one of those, the game master tells you, okay, well, do a program test if you're trying to program a computer or hack a computer, or if you're trying to force open a door or lift something or just moving or sneaking. Then you simply take that, check that stat, and add those points in that skill to the points in that attribute, and that total number is the number of d6s you roll. And then you roll those dice, and every 6 you roll is a success. That's it. All the others are ignored. So if you roll a 6, you succeed. If you roll multiple 6s, you can succeed in a very, good way to flash away or even help somebody else. Maybe if you're sneaking and somebody else rolls badly, you can help them sneak. Somehow. Make up how that works. The DM might ask, so how does that work? Or you hack something so well that it does what you want it to do, or maybe something extra. Or you can charm a person, and the DM can make up ways that extra successes work, or the player can do that. But you might also fail, and then the DM also tells you what happens then. And that is so simple. It's exactly like Tales from the Loop, really. It's just named a little bit differently. And every time you fail and you want to re-roll again, you can push yourself, just like in Tales from the Loop, and you have to check off one of the boxes on your character sheet. And let's see if we can find that here as well. Otherwise, I'll show it on the on the sheets. There should be sheets in the back here, something you can copy, I think. So that makes you basically weaker. You check something off, and then the next time you roll less dice. For each checked box, you have 1 die less. And it's as simple as that. Some items might help you. You know, they can give you bonus dice between 1 and 3 extra dice. And you can lose items as well. You can gain new ones. The problem, like I said, is something that maybe only the GM knows, or maybe you've been very open about it, and that can be a factor in playing the mysteries. Your drive is kind of like the opposite. That can help you in a mystery. And shame, again, basically helps for the story. You could, yeah, like it says here, the GM could use your shame to put you in trouble with a capital T, you know, and your shame just triggers something to happen in the story. So, as you might have noticed right now, the rules are very light and very simple, but it does take a little bit of storytelling from the characters playing and the GM to mold that into something that works for the story. So it does take a little bit of experience or a lot of imagination in storytelling to keep the story flowing and logical, if you will. But it doesn't take a lot of knowledge of how to GM a game, if you know what I mean. So it's rules light, but being able to tell a story nicely and captivate the players is kind of a requirement for the GM. But it's, in my opinion, it's easier than playing a complex 5th edition kind of role-playing game, because that has a lot more rules that a GM needs to know. Right, there's more here, so I'll go through that a bit quicker. Your scars. So here, this is the scars and the conditions. So let's start with that. So every time you want to push a roll and try again, you can check off these boxes. So you've got upset, which if checked, you know, makes you lose a die in your rolls. You can be scared, you can be exhausted, you can be injured. And if all of those have been checked off and you need to, you know, you fail again and you need to check something off again, or maybe something in the story happens that makes you check off a box, then you're broken. And if you're broken, you can't really roll anymore. Everything you try is an automatic failure. So that means you need to go home. You need to talk to your anchor, perhaps. You need to rest. You need to get all of that out of your system. And every time anything is checked off after you rest, basically you go to home and sleep, then you can remove those check boxes again. So there's plenty you can do in a day, and at some point you'll just be too tired or scared or upset to continue, and you need to go home to sleep. So time is a factor. You know, your dungeon, your game master should tell you, hey, it's getting late, you've all had some kind of condition, it's probably time to go home and sleep. Right, so then you've got scars, and every time you become broken, we checked all of these off, you're scarred by what's happened, and you have to describe that. You can, you know, write a sentence on your character sheet, and that can be used by the GM later. You might have some kind of traumatic experience. So like I said, this game is a little bit darker than Tales from the Loop. That was a bit lighter. You were just kids in school. Now you're teenagers, you know, in middle school, and things are a bit more grim. And yeah, that's more or less implied with these chapters here. There's some examples. Right, I'll try and get on with it. So yeah, questions. Okay, let's check the next chapter. So here's the trouble. There's a bit of an explanation here of what happened in this timeline, in this setting. So trouble is something difficult or dangerous standing between the teens and what they want to accomplish, right? That's the hurdles they need to take, the things they encounter, the dangers. And it's described here. And again, you could suffer conditions. You need to roll dice to overcome the trouble. You might need to answer questions, do things together. You can also roll for certain tests together. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of things you can do. But it reads really easy. When you're reading this, it makes sense. You go through this and you're like, oh yeah, that's logical. That makes sense. And you almost don't need to remember everything in the book. If you forget something or you're thinking, okay, so you're doing this or that, how am I going to do that rules-wise? Just flip open that chapter and you'll instantly know, oh yeah, that's probably what I should do. And it doesn't really matter exactly how you resolve the trouble or an interaction or whatever, as long as it feels logical or natural to you and the players, then that's fine. You know, you don't have to roll for everything you do. You can just describe it. Or maybe when you're in a bit of a quiet phase, make the players roll for simple things, just to keep it exciting. That's just one of the things you can do. See, helping each other, team versus team, you could get in a fight. Declaring stakes in an extended trouble, that's also pretty cool. There's here a graph so you can have an idea of your chances to succeed with the number of dice you roll, and if you push your roll, then you've got the skills again, which we've already seen, but it's explained a bit more in detail here. Things that you can actually do. Just examples, really. So we'll skip that. And then here is the heart of the game, right? The mystery. And that is for the GM's eyes only. So if you're a player of this game, skip the next part. Use the timestamps, because this is about the game itself, the story. And it tells you about the truth of the mystery. That's the first thing you need to do. If you're writing a mystery, the plot, right? The truth, what is this about? And then you write kind of like a storyline around that leads up to the truth. Keeping the players in the dark for as long as you can. There are some scenes and trouble in everyday life, stuff that you can use, really just footholds for the game master to use. So you just read all that to get inspiration, and you can use them or write your own. And again, there's stories in the back, so you don't really need to get to that right away. So yeah, it's very self-explanatory, really. They have these phases, where you introduce the teens, the mystery, and you start your investigation. And here's examples of how that might work, right? So you might have several clues that they can find that at some point when they've found all of them leads to some kind of confrontation. Or maybe clue 1 leads to clue 2 and clue 3, and then you get the confrontation. Or maybe you first need 2 clues to find a third, and then the confrontation. However you want to do it. It's just some examples. And that is, of course, also explained here, how a confrontation might work, aftermath. There's possibility of death. Because, again, this is a bit more dark than Tales from the Loop. You could technically die, but again, it's up to you if you really want to do that. Personally, we didn't play it like that. We just got broken at the worst, and then we had to leave. But it is technically possible for you to do that with one of your players. So yeah, healing scars, again, experience points, because if you finished an entire mystery, you could ask the player some questions, and for, you know, correct answers, if you will, and the game master can make them up any way they want, and you can get experience points. And for every 5 experience points, and again, you could also just say, hey, tell me what you learned from this mystery, and if you feel that they've participated enough in the story, you could just reward them those 5 XP that they need to increase one of their skills. And then you can put an extra point in one of their skills, which could be handy. Or maybe they found some kind of cool new item that'll help them with a skill. Anyway, all of that is explained in this chapter as well. Yeah, items that you can have, NPCs you might encounter, longer mysteries and campaigns if you want, advanced GM techniques, everything the GM needs to know is in here. I'm going through this pretty fast because it's a big book. The Machine God flowchart. So this is, again, spoiler, but something that you could use. It's a nice way to lay out your own story. Look at that art. It's really cool. You could actually add horror to the game to make it really scary. And there's examples here as well. So tips for the GM. Some kind of, vehicles that you might use in your stories. They actually describe some types of vehicles that exist in this world. So that's pretty cool with some sketches. You can use that if you want, or you make up your own. And now here is basically more spoilers, the mystery landscape. So this tells you, and I'm going to do this very quickly, what happens in Things from the Flood in both the Swedish and the American setting. Look at that, so cool. So you can read through all of that as the game master tells you about all the different characters that you encounter and what their background is and their part in the story. All right, now, so, and these are the 3 stories. Now I'm just gonna really browse through this because you're gonna want to play this. It's about a couple of scientists who did stuff and that has led to, well, disaster, really. And it's explained here. It gives you images of all, sketches of all those characters, beautiful illustrations that you can use, and how to play those scenarios. And this is just really, really well written. It's well done. It's exciting. There's 4 of them, and I think they're interconnected, and every chapter is about one of those scientists and what they did and how those stories relate to each other, and yeah, what the teens need to solve. So there you go. All right, and then in the back we have the backers. The ravers and the hackers are they called. Here it is. Here is the character sheet. So we're past the spoilers right now. Here are your main attributes: body, tech, heart, and mind. So you put numbers in here. These are the skills, and every skill tells you which attribute it's linked to. You put numbers in there as well. Here are the boxes you can tick for experience. So every 5 experience lets you add a +1 to any of these. So you can tick them and then erase them again. These are the conditions you can check whenever you want to push a roll. You can get upset, scared, exhausted, injured, and when all of these have been ticked, You can be broken and scarred, and then you need to describe your mental or physical scars, and you can write them down here. And whether you've accepted them or not, which we just saw. You can write down your items, any other notes, relationships with the other teens, or with NPCs, or frictions you have with people. And this is your personal box where you got your name, your age, your drive, your problem, your shame, and a bit of a description there. The type, you know, if you're the raver or the motorhead or whatever, your favorite song, and who is your anchor. That's what you fill in. There's also a digital version of this available. And the book also has an index, which is handy. And there we go. And this is the American map again. So that is everything that is in the book. It's quite a thick book, just like Tales from the Loop. It is just as good. Setting is slightly different. It's 10 years in the future, basically. It's in the 90s. And yeah, I really liked it. So let's go to my final thoughts. All right, so to conclude, I really enjoyed playing Things from the Flood. I really love the setting. I liked the setting in Tales from the Loop a lot as well, and this is basically just the same, only 10 years later. And I like the idea of revisiting basically your childhood or your youth with the kind of social interactions that you had back then when you went to school, and all the popular culture that was happening back then, the music, TV shows, movies, you name it. There are also, like I showed you, examples in the book of all of that, which you can use to draw inspiration from. And all of that is really cool. I think the setting is very, very fleshed out. I also like the artwork used in the book. I mean, there's beautiful, beautiful art on the cover as well. So yeah, this is certainly a big plus in the book. And Tales from the Flood and Tales from the Loop and Things from the Flood both have that. So that is also very well done. I also think the book is written very well. It's easy to read. It has these tables with information that you can use that are laid out well. Yeah, I mean, it's just very simple to get through, and it teaches you the rules in a very natural way, I think. It just sticks in your memory. So that works as well. They have maps in the book, which helps to get an idea of your surroundings. Also nice. And I do appreciate that this book already has several pre-written adventures to play. So you can just get started right away with the book, and you don't need to come up with your own scenarios right away. And after you've played these scenarios and you want more and you like what you've seen, you can always start thinking of new scenarios yourself. And there's probably some scenarios out there on the internet that people already came up with that you could use. So in short, I think this is a very good RPG for especially newer dungeon masters to start with. Just like Tales from the Loop, really, because it's rules light. There's not a whole lot of rules. Making a character is pretty simple, so even new players can get started pretty quickly. Everything is the D6 Year Zero engine, which is very simple, which I really like. And it's very intuitive, and it gives you a lot of freedom as the game master to decide when a player should roll for a test or not. And it encourages players to describe what they're doing in detail, gives them a lot of freedom too. They can actually contribute to what's happening in the story and in the world, and the game master can use the player's imagination to build on. And I like that as well. It does, however, require a little bit of game mastery experience from the game master, because you need to be able to use that information and keep the story, keep the players involved in that story, keep it interesting for everybody. And of course that goes for any role-playing game, but because this is so open and a bit sandboxy, you might need to rely on your own imagination and inspiration a little bit more than what's given in the book. That does mean it's easier for, you know, playing the game to remember the rules, because if a game takes you by the hand too much, that usually means that there's also a whole lot of things to remember, making it hard, in my opinion. So in short, again, I really enjoyed this. I think this definitely deserves a 2 thumbs up, especially if you enjoyed the Tales from the Loop. This is a no-brainer. Pick up this book as well and continue the story with new characters, or maybe your old characters grew up and, you know, are now older. You can totally do that and just have fun with the story. And I'd like to know if you've played this or Tales from the Loop and what your experiences were, or maybe your story hooks. So go ahead and share them in the comments or on my Facebook page. That is greatly appreciated. I'd love to read your experiences with these role-playing games by Free League. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and check out my Patreon page if you'd like to support what I do. You can do so for as little as $1 a month, and that'll get you your name in the credits of all of my YouTube videos, as well as access to some of my Patreon exclusive videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time on Board Game Heaven.